Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Émilie and this is Finding the Summit. So the Finding the Summit's project and goal is not only to share our experience on the mountain as we reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, but it's also to inspire and encourage other women to reach their own Kilimanjaro-sized goals. So in today's video, I'm going to be introducing you to Sarah Swain. So Sarah is the visionary behind the Great Canadian Women Movement. So Sarah has done some amazing things, and in this interview that I have with her today, you're going to learn about her backstory, how she got started, her biggest struggles along the way, and hopefully this will encourage you to start on this journey yourself. Because sometimes all we need is a little encouragement, or even we just need to see that it's possible, that other people are doing what we want to do, and that'll be enough to get you kick-started. So let's hop right into it. All right, Sarah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm awesome.
So I've known Sarah I guess we've known each other for about a year and a half now.
Already. About a year.
Yeah,
about a year.
Yeah, and the funny thing is we actually met on Instagram, which is how I met Emily. So it's, I mean, I promise I don't meet everyone I know on Instagram, but it's really cool that we did.
Yeah.
And Sarah is now living in New Brunswick, but she used to live in Alberta, so that's how we met. So let's just dive right into it. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about what you're doing, what your business is, and
Sure.
Tell us about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sarah Swain, and like you said, I'm living in New Brunswick. Prior to that, I was in Alberta, and prior to that, I was in Ontario. So I've had the luxury of being able to live in a few different provinces across Canada, which also kind of plays a role in what I'm doing today in my business. I'm a former corporate grinding, hustling career woman. I broke free of that almost a year ago. We're coming up on the big year mark, which is really, really surreal and exciting all at the same time. And what I really decided to do with my life was start living it intentionally. And I really felt like I was kind of being, I would say, dragged along an assembly line for a very long time, just kind of checking off all the boxes and doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing with my life to make sure that everybody else was pleased with how I was living my life. And it just started to feel really yucky. And I started to feel really out of alignment. And I knew that I was meant to do something different. I knew that I was meant to go a different way, go against the grain, do what most people want to do, but are hesitant to take that first step. And I knew that that was going to be an integral role that I would play in assisting other women to take their first step too. So where that has brought me to today is, my company is called Life Intentionally because I believe that's how it is supposed to be lived. And B, I'm the visionary behind the Great Canadian Woman Movement, which has blossomed into this phenomenal thing in a very short period of time. And it's all started with a podcast called The Great Canadian Woman. And the idea came from the fact that I attended a networking event in California at the beginning of 2018. And I realized that almost half the women there were Canadian. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, why don't I know about any of you? Why don't you know about me? Why are we all leaving Canada to come here to all meet and introduce each other? Where is the platform for the Canadian woman to be elevated and to have that spotlight to let everybody know that she's there, whether it's she just has a compelling life story to tell or an inspiring story of business or entrepreneurship to share to inspire others. There wasn't any. So that is what provided me with the idea, that light bulb moment for the podcast, to create the Great Canadian Woman podcast, where I interview great Canadian women from coast to coast. And that has sparked an entire movement now. It's now in the form of an annual summit that'll be coming up in October 2019. It'll be the second one. And it's also blossomed into a collaborative book series as well. So this is all happening in a really short period of time. But in a nutshell, that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned the one thing that led you to leaving that corporate job was leading an inspired life. So how are you doing that right now? Like, yes, you've started the Great Canadian Women movement. You have your life inspired business, but how is that really looking like for you today?
Yeah, for me personally, a big value of mine is time. And I think that time is something that we take for granted. We think that it's something that we just have an abundant supply of. And we say things like, oh, well, someday, or, that would be really great if only I could do this then I'll do it. And we say all these comments like tomorrow's guaranteed. And it isn't, not for any of us. So for me, it's really doing the things that I love with a whole lot of intention with the time that I have, because we never know when that time is going to be up. So for me, that looks like a lot of time with family, a lot of time with loved ones, a lot of time by the ocean, formerly by the mountains, spending a lot of time outdoors, and just having the freedom to do what my soul is asking me to do each day, as opposed to doing the things that I have to do each day because it's being dictated by something external to myself. So really just allowing myself to be my own compass and what feels really, really good, and following that and staying in that space as often as I possibly can.
That's awesome. That's so amazing. Um, okay, so I know a lot of people that are watching have not left that corporate job yet, or have not really started to live that inspired life that you speak of. So, what was the biggest? It's because it always sounds really easy. Yeah, I quit my job, now I'm doing this, and I started this business, and it's all amazing and it's great. And yes, it is, but tell us, like, what was the biggest challenge or the biggest thing that you can tell someone that wants to leave that world and reach those goals, or reach that life that is just
Yeah.
sounds so amazing.
This is such a great question. And no, it is not easy. I don't want to give anyone that false impression that, oh, it's just one day I was doing this and now today I'm doing this and poof, we have a business. It takes a lot of work. It takes probably 10, 15 times more than you think it would. And I don't mean that to scare anyone off. I just want to be really realistic. But for me, the best advice I could give to the woman who is feeling that pull, like, that there is something more out there for you, or there's something bigger that you feel you're meant to be doing with your life. There's an inner purpose that's kind of calling you forward. You don't have to wait until that whisper turns into a full-blown 5-alarm fire screaming at you, because that's exactly what I waited for.
Yeah.
I waited until I was way past the tipping point, and I actually caused myself a lot of unnecessary, I would say, upset, because I became so stressed in my workplace. And a lot of it, I was really getting into a really negative mindset. And I look back on that version of myself, I'm like, who was that person? But I had been fighting this inner dialogue for so long because I was terrified to take my leap. But by prolonging that, it actually made it that much more difficult. And just got to the point where I said, I just need to start, because what I'm doing right now isn't working. Therefore, I need to do something different. And what I learned through all of that is messy action is a million times better than no action at all.
I love
So
that.
even though
Yeah.
you might not feel ready, start anyway. Just start.
Yeah.
Right? Because even over a span of a year or even 6 months, even those small little action steps compound into a much larger result if you just start taking action.
That's awesome. I love how you say the messy steps are better than no steps at all, because yeah, that's really awesome. Um so okay. So part of being like a huge inspiration, and you have like a really awesome Facebook group, and you do lots of videos, you have a podcast, you have books, or you're like starting to publish books, like it's amazing, these summits. How, apart from all that stuff, like how are you actually going in and positively impacting women, or helping them start on that journey to have like their inspired life?
Yeah. And you know what? I think a lot of the time we focus too much on gaining the necessary skills and knowledge to be able to embark on our journey. And I was that woman. If I could show you my bookshelf right now, I think I have every book known to man, because I'm like, I just need to read more. I need to know more. I need to become more inspired. I'd be watching all these videos on YouTube to pump myself up every morning. So I was constantly absorbing content and knowledge and information.
Yeah.
But the one thing that was missing that I really love to help women with is the mindset portion of the entire package of taking your step into living an inspired life, because your mind is going to try and work against you. Mm-hmm. Your heart's calling you forward and your mind's saying like, no, stay back here where it's safe and secure and everything's guaranteed and certain, right? And what I really help women understand is that uncertainty is actually a really awesome place to play, because that means that absolutely anything is fair game. Anything is on the table. Anything is possible. So to really help people get comfortable with being really, really uncomfortable, because that's part of it. I think as soon as we start to feel uncomfortable, we get that first piece of judgment or that first unsolicited opinion on what we're doing with our life, because that happens.
Yeah.
It's our, first instinct and reaction to just retreat and go back into safety because it doesn't feel good. So I really help women lean into that and stay there as long as they can, so that they can kind of rewrite all of those stories about what their ego mind is telling them is really terrifying and unsafe, and reprogramming ourselves to realize that it's not so bad. We can do this. So me, it's more the mindset aspect of working with women and helping them build their self-belief, as opposed to helping them with the technical side of things. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I always thought that the technical side of things is, if you know, like for me, I'm a photographer. If you know how to take pictures, you can run a photography business. But now it's completely shifted. The mindset is definitely the biggest part of it, because you can take good pictures, but if your mind is telling you you can't do it, or no one's ever going to want to pay you, then you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I have one more question for you. What would you say is your Kilimanjaro-sized goal? So whether you've reached that yet, I know it's a big question, whether you think you've reached it compared to who you were 5 years ago, or if you think in 5 years, this is going to be my Kili-sized goal.
Ooh, I love this question. And I like that you kind of gave the reference of 5 years ago, because if I look at myself 5 years ago, I've come a very far distance already.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not there yet. And I have this big vision for Canadian women. And the slogan behind the Great Canadian Woman is raising the frequency of Canada one woman at a time. I think that as Canadians are a really humble bunch. And there's so much great things. There's so many great people doing great work up here. And we're just not telling the world about it, So my vision is to really be the platform to put Canada on the map for high performing, intentional, heart-centered, inspiring women to become known, not just in Canada, but all across the world, so that we start really looking at the talent that we have here before we start looking elsewhere. Because that's our first instinct, because we know who else exists everywhere else, but there really isn't that place where we can go saying, who's here? Like who's in my community, let alone in my province or my country. And the women that I've found, even locally, being out here just for a very short period of time, through the work of connecting Canadian women with one another, is astounding. There's so much. So that's kind of my big, getting Canadian women on the international map.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Cool. So if people want to find you online, where can we find you? Instagram, Facebook, your website, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So the best place to find me is Instagram, and it's amazing how that's kind of our main hub these days, kind of ahead of the websites. And you can find me at The Great Canadian Woman on Instagram. I have 2 websites right now. Both are under construction. They'll be relaunching in November 2018 with all new Great Canadian Woman branding. It's super exciting. So there will be thegreatcanadianwoman.ca And you can reach me on my personal website at sarahswain.ca as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your inspiration and your story. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an awesome conversation.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. I am so happy that you got to learn more about Sarah. She is so amazing. So you definitely need to go follow her on Instagram, especially her daily Instagram stories are great. She has the cutest 2 dogs and cats too. So go follow her, go find out what she's doing, get inspired by everything that she's teaching. And as for us, if you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, because we will be sharing a lot more stories of amazing women just like Sarah in the coming weeks. So if you have any questions, suggestions, leave them in the comments below, or feel free to check out our website or send us an email. All those links are in the description below. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.